If he stays in custody, then certainly his ability to make decisions about the welfare of these children is very, very limited. Obviously, with dad, in jail, there's a question as to who's taking care of the kids, who's making sure they go to school, who's providing for their medical care. And all of that is a concern for the county. Child protective services, child welfare services, as we call them now, they are probably generating a safety plan. They're probably contacting Larry, talking to him, talking to his family, maybe talking to the maternal side, to their grandparents, and trying to figure this out. The way that this works is that the county first tries to figure things out privately between everyone involved about what needs to happen. And only if they can't figure that out do they file anything in dependency court. Because their prerogative is to just make sure that the children are safe and well taken care of. I would expect that child welfare services will probably say in having these discussions with both sets of grandparents and the dad that someone is going to need to have some legal authority to do things on behalf of the children while Larry is in jail. Unless he bails out, relatively soon, there's going to be a need for someone to step in and act as the parent or as the parents for these children. I would fully expect for one of the grandparents to request a guardianship of the children. Typically, the party that requests a guardianship would be a party that already has physical custody of the children. Somebody needs to have legal authority to make decisions about these kids. I don't think that you can have two sets of grandparents just making private agreements between themselves when there's at least one live parent that is still there. You need a court to make an order here. And that I think that's why ultimately this probably will end up being a guardianship case. If the court doesn't give custody of these kids to one of the two grandparents, then they end up with a stranger. And the court's going to do everything that the court can to avoid that. So as long as there's a family member willing to take them, the court will have the kids stay with a family member. In trying to figure out what's appropriate here on a guardianship, there's going to be a question of, did the grandparents potentially cover up or, excuse dad's behavior, especially his more recent behavior? I mean, one thing is for sure, whoever makes orders about these kids needs to order that they attend therapy, that they're getting regular therapy, because the amount of pressure, can you imagine being these kids going to school every day, in such a highly publicized case? All of your classmates, all of your teachers know that this is happening and that their dad may have killed their mother and is being charged with her murder. I mean, that's so hard for these kids. It honestly would almost be better if they were outside of the community. And maybe that's its own argument to be made if the maternal grandparents petition for a guardianship. That would certainly be an argument that I would make on their behalf, that you almost don't want these kids in this community given the amount of publicity that these kids have